So now let's make tracks. Let's go back to the text. And where I am in the text is also Damba. This is Padamba Sangye. Also Damba Sangye says. So I'll try to find that. I'm dealing with the my digitized version, which I've been editing all over the place. And I've gone quite a bit ahead, because I like really to be able to cover this text, but also return to this wonderful text, Naked Awareness. So, fasten your seatbelt. We're going to make some tracks now. So you can see the context. I'm not going to go back and contextualize it. It's right in front of you. So as Damba Sangye says, when you are carried by the Guru, you arrive at your desired destination, O people of Dingri, with admiration and reverence. So it's Mögu in Tibetan. With admiration and reverence, make offerings at the Guru's feet. So this is obviously highlighting the profound blessing, the empowering of your practice through the Guru Yoga when it's done skillfully, wisely, intelligently. When it goes badly, it can go really, really badly. The exalted Mila, as in Milarepa, says, when you've departed, he's addressing his teacher, his Lama, when you've departed for you is Central Tibet, so why don't I just say Central Tibet? When you've departed for Central Tibet, O teacher, a vision of the Guru sometimes arises. When the vision of the Guru arises, I appeal to you, I supplicate you, inseparably at my crown, and without forgetting, I contemplate you at my heart chakra. So these are two of the very common visualizations in the Guru Yoga practice. One is visualizing the Guru, indivisible, from your yidam, or personal deity, on the crown of your head. The other one is at your heart. Another one I've heard, which I kind of like also, is on your right shoulder. So you're always circumambulating. It's like going around a stupa, and the stupa is always on your right. Wherever you're walking, your Guru is on the right, so you're always circumambulating your Guru, even when you're walking in a straight line. But anyway, that, of course, all of these are lovely images, but the point of this is to be living constantly in the presence of the enlightened awareness of your Guru. Great blessing there. So now we move on to the main practice. In the main practice of Mahamudra, there are many modes of explanation, but they are divisible into two: Sutra and Mantra. Mantra is a contraction of Mantarayana, which is synonymous with Vajrayana. So that's from the root text. And so now we see there are two approaches, two whole venues of Mahamudra, in the Sutrayana context, the Vajrayana context. So, Panchen Lozang continues here. There are many ways of explaining the main practice of Mahamudra. The conqueror, the victorious one, Dikungpa, great Kagyupa master, explicating the perspective. This is Gongpa. And I checked with one marvelous Lama, very knowledgeable. The Tibetan term is Gongpa. And I was, for years, together with a lot of other translators, feeling kind of uneasy. Well, does it mean intention? Does it mean thought? Those are the two. And I asked Ganjan Duguramache from Bhutan. He's really the premier Nyima Lama from Bhutan. I said, what does Gongpa mean? What does Gongpa mean? Does it mean, and I'm speaking in Tibetan, does it more intention or does it mean more thought? Because Samba, or Gongpa is honorific of Samba. It could be either way. And he said, neither one. It means tawa. It means view. It means view. It means the enlightened view, or viewpoint, or perspective. That's what Gongpa means. And that suddenly, Then I looked at all the cases where I've seen Gongpa come, and it works every single time. It means view, viewpoint, or perspective. So that's how I've translated it here. The conqueror, Dikungpa, explicating the perspective of Dogen Rinpoche, arranged Mahamudra according to the three vehicles and the four seals. So he's gonna unpack this. I'm going to do this right now, but we're not going to tarry here. We can really go so slowly that we'll not want to even finish this text in the next 6 weeks, let alone get back to naked awareness. So I'm going to be moving rather briskly through. So here's what he says. Here's what Dikungpa says. In his discussion of the four profound seals, now bear in mind, mudra literally means seal, just like a seal on a letter, something sealed. So in his discussion of the four profound seals, the eminent Dogen clearly taught that the four seals of the path are methods of achieving the three aspects of awakening, or modalities of awakening. The four seals of the path are characterized in terms of the three vows. This will become clear as we read on. So here's the first of the three. The Shravaka, the person intent on seeking his or her own individual liberation. The Shravaka's physical, verbal, and mental inseparability from morality is the action seal. So we're going to find four types of seals. Action seal, Dharma seal, pledge seal, and then the great seal. Or Karma Mudra, action seal. Dharma seal, Dharma Mudra, Samaya Mudra, and then Mahamudra. Okay, so those are the four seals. But they're going to have a different meaning in each of these different contexts. It's very, very brilliant, really. So the Shravaka is in terms of the Shravaka is homogeneously ethical behavior, non-violent, benevolent behavior by way of body, speech, and mind. The inseparability of the Shravaka's conduct by way of body, speech, and mind from the principles of ethics, of non-violence and benevolence, that's the Karma Mudra, the action seal. The Shravaka's realization of the lack of self of persons, or personal identitylessness, the lack of an inherent nature of an individual, the self, the ego, their realization of the lack of self of persons. Not that people don't exist, but they don't have an inherent identity in and of themselves. This is taught as the Dharma seal. Okay, so there's their realization. Their freedom from afflictions. It really is klesha. It doesn't mean defilement. Dzogchen means defilement, but this is klesha. So mental afflictions, mental afflictions. Their freedom from mental afflictions is the pledge or samaya seal, and nirvana, their nirvana without remaining aggregates is the great seal, Mahamudra. Now the nirvana without remaining aggregates is classic teachings in the Pali Canon, the Theravada interpretation, and that is when the Shravaka Arhat becomes achieved nirvana, and then passes away. The continuum of all of the five aggregates, including the aggregate of consciousness, and within consciousness, including the aggregate of mental consciousness. All of these conditioned by prior mental afflictions and karma, severed, terminated. So that's without remaining aggregates. You leave all your baggage behind, and nothing carries through. None of the five aggregates carry through. That's very clear, unequivocally stated by the Buddha. This is the great seal. This is the Shravakayana great seal. This is their Mahamudra. Is final, total, irreversible freedom without ever coming back, and not bringing anything of samsara with you. So there's Shravaka. And now we go to the Bodhisattva. The inseparability of the Bodhisattva's three doors, body, speech, and mind, from the six perfections. In other words, all of their activity by way of body, speech, and mind is never divorced or separated from the six perfections of generosity, ethics, patience, enthusiasm, meditation, and wisdom. That inseparability, that's their action. This is their action seal, the Karma Mudra. Their freedom from illusion is, again, the word yuma. It means illusion, so there's no reason to translate it as anything else. Their freedom from illusion and conceptual elaborations is the Dharma seal. They've seen through the illusions. They've seen reality as it is, and they've seen it in a way that is devoid of conceptual elaborations. This is the projection that I talked about at some length this morning. They're seeing reality as it is. They're seeing the illusion as an illusion, which means they're no longer deceived by it. They're not being tainted by this stain of self-interest. Now this, of course, means self-interest in the afflictive sense, self-interest in the sense of me first, self-centeredness. My well-being first. And it's just ubiquitous throughout samsara. It's sometimes subtle and sometimes incredibly gross. But it's that quiet insistence. If it's between you and me, and you're not one of mine, me first. I just should go without saying, me first. That's the stain of self-interest or self-centeredness. But the term here, I'm translating literally, self-interest. They're not being tainted by the stain of self-interest because of the bodhicitta. Is the pledge seal, the samaya sattva, And the equal taste of emptiness and compassion is the great seal, Mahamudra. The equal taste of emptiness and compassion is a very, very rich phrase. When one first ventures into the teachings, trying to understand, trying to cultivate or meditate on emptiness, it's very, very easy, as one steps across that threshold, to find that compassion is evaporating. For a very simple reason. The teachings on emptiness say, there is no one out there existing from their own side. That's what it says. There is no one out there existing from their own side, by their own nature. Or as the Dalai Lama often says, it's classic teaching also, it's in Tibetan is dzukuzuksa. And dzukuzuksa is what you're pointing your finger at. Like that. Something really practical. That sense that there's someone over there where I'm jabbing my finger. That there's somebody over there that is what I'm pointing at, and they're really there from their own side. That's exactly what's being refuted. And of course, equally, it's not like I'm the only one in the universe. There's no one there either. There's no one from my side, exists from my own side, by my own nature, totally empty of. But if that's the case, then when one starts to go down that rabbit hole, then compassion seems to evaporate. Well, then there's no problem. Nobody's there, nobody's here, nobody's anywhere. So that equally kind of overwhelms. You remember the theme, view and contact. The emptiness can easily overwhelm compassion. But then we come back and we read the news, and 95 people died just in India because they had a whole bunch of fireworks. They didn't go off one by one, they all went off at the same time. Killed 95 people, and they were there for a celebration, of course. 95 people. You read that, it breaks your heart. Or you see, almost all the news is bad. And so you see that what's actually happening, or it's in your own life, a loved one, a friend, and so forth. And you see the very real struggles they're going through, the miseries, the conflicts they're going through. And as soon as we start taking that seriously, as of course we should, it's called empathy, it's called compassion, then emptiness fades right out. Because they're really there. I have to do something. They're really there. They need me. And it's, I'm really here and they're really there and I'm going to leap to the rescue and I need to do something. Emptiness is now just completely history. It's nowhere in sight. Seeing the two, that in fact the deeper your realization of emptiness, the stronger the compassion. The stronger your compassion, realizing the nature of dependent origination, the stronger your insight into emptiness. When you're there, then as Tsongkhapa said in his 3 principles of the path, okay, now you found the middle way. Now you found it. He phrased it a tiny bit differently, but the same theme. As you really comprehend the reality of causality, dependent origination, if that insight itself empowers, strengthens, sharpens your insight into emptiness, and as you probe into the very nature of emptiness of inherent nature, if this empowers your appreciation, your awareness, your understanding of dependent origination, then you found the middle way. But otherwise, when we attend to causality, it seems to be real. When we attend to emptiness, causality seems to fade away. So the equal taste, that these are completely non-dual. Of course, this refers to ultimate and relative bodhicitta. So there's the Bodhisattva, there's the second, and now we'll go to the third. According to the path of secret mantra, of course, this is a contraction of secret mantrayana, which of course refers to Vajrayana. According to the path of secret mantra, devotion to the messenger. Interesting phrase. Devotion to the messenger is the action seal. Now, the messenger can be clearly understood. It's ponya in Tibetan, literally means messenger. And the action seal is the Karma Mudra. This can refer to the consort. In very mature, fully qualified stage of completion practice within highest yoga tantra, that can refer to an actual consort. So there's one. And you notice the word is devotion, not utilization. You're not using somebody. If you are, you're totally missing the point entirely. The inseparable joining of the vital winds, the pranas and mind, is the Dharma seal. The invocation of prana mind, lungsen, prana mind, energy mind. The union of these, they're going through the central channel and so forth, that's the Dharma seal. The non-degeneration of vows, all of your primary and secondary bodhisattva precepts. Or, this is the bodhisattva, then you have, of course, your samayas and your vows, your Vajrayana samayas and vows. The non-degeneration of vows and samayas is the samaya seal. That makes really good sense. and the manifestation of connate gnosis. Connate, again, it's hlenge, which literally means born with, and that's what connate means, born with, born together. The manifestation of connate gnosis is the Great Seal of Mahamudra. Connate primordial consciousness. I'm sticking with gnosis because it's a good translation. My preference is primordial consciousness. But the connate means it's already there. Just like Rigpa's already there. You don't acquire it. And it's already there and it's already knowing, otherwise it wouldn't be Rigpa, which means knowing. And likewise, primordial consciousness is primordial. It doesn't have a beginning, so it's already there. But is it manifest or not? Well, that's the question. And the manifestation, the full experience, the identification of this connate primordial consciousness is the Great Seal. That defines it right there. That's the definition of Mahamudra. Within this Kagyü tradition, so again, you see he's very clearly, explicitly, and repeatedly drawing on the Kagyü tradition, which does suggest he's in fact uniting the Gelug with the Kagyü. On the path of freedom, the pith instruction, this is the Mengak. A pith instruction, I think, is the best translation. The pith instruction, the Mengak Upadesha in Sanskrit, the pith instruction on inner fire. That's the translation here for Tummo. You all know Tummo, I think. The pith instruction on inner fire, focus on, this is physical exercises. The Tungkor doesn't mean a magical circle. It's the Tungkor, because I've been trained in them, the Adhisara, they're called in Sanskrit. These, if anybody's been trained in the 6 yogas and Aropa, and they're physical exercises involving breathing exercises, physical exercises for arousing Tummo, the Tungkor are the physical exercises, including pranayama and actual physical exercises. If you want to see them, you want to see what they look like from the outside, watch the movie Yogis of Tibet. Unbelievable. The yogi jumping up about 4 feet into the air, going into full lotus, and then landing in full lotus. That's just for starters. What you don't see is what he's doing with his mind and his breath. This makes the outer display look like whatever. The inner is quite incredible. And all of that is designed to get those pranas going into the central, arouse the Tummo, and then manifest. I've been using the word innate mind of clear light, innate mind of clear light. Roger Jackson, our translator here, is using primordial. And I looked at it, I went to a Tibetan dictionary, looked at the different meanings of the Tibetan yukma. And I have to say, I'm shifting now. He's won me over. Instead of saying innate mind of clear light, I'm going to be saying from now on primordial mind of clear light, because this is exactly what it meant. Innate is not wrong. It's not a mistake. But it has that quality of it's always been there, primordial. So from now on I'm going to call it primordial mind of clear light. Dune yupa, has always been there. Means exactly primordial. It's a good translation. So I'm going back to his translation. So focus on physical exercises, the manipulation of the vital winds, I call them vital energies, is the action seal. That's where you're with the power of your breathing, your visualization, and so forth, your exercises. You're drawing the vital energies into the central channel, into the heart chakra, into the indestructible bindu at your heart. That's the action seal. And the arising of blissful gnosis is said to be the dharma seal. And dispassion, this is simply non-attachment. Dispassion is a good word. Non-attachment is the pledge seal. And spontaneous actualization, that's hlun dup. Hlungi dupa. Hlun means spontaneous and dupa means to actualize. And so I'm marginally translating hlun dup as spontaneous actualization. Something may be already there, but not actualized, not made manifest, but when it spontaneously is actualized, that's hlun dup. And so the spontaneous actualization of your realization of Rigpa, that's the Great Seal. And that's Mahamudra. Okay? So he just went through the 3 yanas, or 4. We have if we distinguish between the Vajrayana and then the path of freedom, the culmination, then there's 4, and they're the 4 seals. Right? Or what did he call it? He called it the 3 vehicles. So it is Shravaka, Bodhisattva, and Vajrayana. And then the 4 seals you're familiar with now. So that does that. Then we move right on. The great Ge Lochenpo Genupel. So for those of you who don't have background in Buddhism, he's called Panchen Rinpoche for a reason. Panchen means Pandita Chambu, which means great Mahapandit. He's truly a Mahapandit. He's incredible in his erudition. That's why they called him Panchen Rinpoche. And so he has this vast learning, and he's displaying some of it here. So it may be more than you need right now, but I promised you the old transmission and commentary, so we'll go through this, but we won't linger. But he's giving you the big picture of Mahamudra as it's manifested in the Vajrayana context and the Sutra. The great Guru Lotchampo Junupel explains the non-conceptual gnosis that ascertains emptiness. This is Mahamudra. So you're finding different definitions. They're all in the same cluster. And then I've changed the next one. I think it was an incorrect translation. At the very beginning of his chapter on Mahamudra in his Blue Annals, it's a great, very famous Dharma history, he explains, now I will speak of Mahamudra, which seals all practices and attainments from the Pratimoksha vows. These are the vows of individual liberation, the lay precept, novice precept, precepts of full ordination. From the Pratimoksha vows that are the basis of the Buddhist teachings right up to the Sri Goya Samaja, often known as the king of tantras, so the culmination of Vajrayana. It covers the whole spectrum. Okay? It seals all practices and attainments from the most basic to the most sublime. Therefore, Mahamudra. So he's giving you the meaning, so there'll be no ambiguity or vagueness or uncertainty. What does Mahamudra mean? This is what it means. And the translation as great seal is a good translation. Thus, although there are various modes of explanation, in short, since Mahamudra is divided into sutra and mantra, it is twofold. Two approaches, Sutrayana and Vajrayana. Of these, I will explain the former rather extensively here. Because I will say less about the latter, I will explain it first. So between the two, he's going to go into much more detail on the Sutrayana approach to Mahamudra. But he's going to take care of, fairly rapidly, a brief overview of the Vajrayana approach, the mantra approach, okay? So he's going to do one very briefly and then the other one more elaborately. So the first one is going to be really kind of a flyover, simply an overview. And he's going to do it pretty concisely, and we will go through it concisely. Because here, we're here not as a scholarly seminar, there's not a degree program and so forth. This is all for practice. So if it gets a little bit, a little bit distant from our practice here and now, I'm going to go a bit more briefly, a bit more quickly. So, Mantra Mahamudra. So this is where he's going to give a brief exposition, but it's going to be pretty intense, of Mahamudra according to Vajrayana, couched within the context of Vajrayana practice. So the latter is the Vajrayana approach. The latter, here we go to the root text. The latter is the great bliss, clear light. Roger translated it as luminosity, which of course is not incorrect, but it's Ösel, and most people are translating it literally, Ösel, clear light. So I'm going to do that as well. Because you've heard the term so many times, and luminosity, it's nothing wrong with it, but I'm sticking with clear light. The latter is the great bliss - clear light. Desel. The great bliss clear light mind, arising from skill in the methods of penetrating the vital points in the Vajrabhati, the vital points of the chakras, the nadis, and so forth. So this is couched within Vajrayana. The Mahamudra of Saraha and Nagarjuna, of Naro, as in Naropa, and Maitri, as in Maitripa, Naropa, Maitripa being two of the great Mahasiddhas of India, and then Saraha, another great Mahasiddha, and so is Nagarjuna for that matter. The Mahamudra of this lineage, Saraha, Nagarjunapada, Naropa, Maitripa, is taught in the 7 attainment texts and the essential trilogy, and is the quintessence of the unexcelled tantras. Highest Yoga Tantra, Anuttara Yoga Tantra. So he's going to go through some detail here of texts, and we're going to just go right through it, like a hot knife through butter. And why is it called the Great Seal, Chakya Chambo in Tibetan? According to the drop of Mahamudra, so this is the text, of course. According to this text, Chak. So Chakya is the Tibetan mudra, and so Chak within Gya, Chakya, the first syllable Chak, is the gnosis of emptiness, the primordial consciousness of emptiness. So this is a real scholar's delight here. Gya, the second syllable, refers to freedom from samsaric phenomena. Dharma just means phenomena, so we may as well say phenomena rather than keeping it in Sanskrit. Chempo, which means great, is union. So he took mudra in Tibetan, broke it into two pieces, and then maha is Chenpo means. Here, great means union. This expresses the meaning of saying great seal. Okay? So this is a scholarly exposition and etymology of Mahamudra. As for the Mahamudra of the mantra system, having received, a minor preference, having received the four empowerments and guarded your vows and pledges properly, stabilize your familiarity with the generation stage. So you receive the empowerment, you receive the vows and pledges, and you keep them, and then you venture into the first two of the major venues or genres of practice within highest yoga tantra, state of generation, and you stabilize your familiarity with them. Okay, so you get into them, you really get into the groove, you become expert, you become adept in the state regeneration practices. So there's state regeneration, and then you penetrate the vital points of the Vajra body through skill in various internal and external methods to make the winds, that is the pranas, enter, abide, and dissolve into the central channel. He just summed up the state of regeneration completion in looks like one sentence. That's it. The gnosis of connate great bliss that arises from that the gnosis of great bliss, of connate great bliss, that arises from that, from enabling the vital energies to enter, abide, and dissolve into the central channel. Dissolve into the indestructible bindu at your heart. I know this is very technical, I'm moving through it quickly. The commentary will take about 5 years, I think. The gnosis of connate bliss that arises from that realizes emptiness by way of its generic idea. That's my translation of dunchi. I think generic idea is a very closely translation. So you're realizing emptiness, but your realization of emptiness is filtered through an idea, a general idea. So it's not unmediated, it's not absolutely non-conceptual, but it is a realization. But it's a filtered realization. Okay? That's the first phase of your realization of emptiness. And so when such the connate great bliss that arises from that realizes emptiness by way of its generic idea, and that connate great bliss is the semblant clear light. Bei yourself. Semblant means similar to, a facsimile of, a near miss, close to, but not quite the real deal. And this is semblant, kind of an area translation, but it's a good one. The bei yourself, or semblant, that is the facsimile of the clear light, a close approximation. When such gnosis realizes emptiness directly, without any mediation, by any idea, any conceptualization, it is the actual clear light. So we have the facsimile clear light and then the actual clear light, the semblant and the actual. That mind that is of the essential nature of the two kinds of clear light, the semblant and the actual, is given such names as the core of the definitive meaning, the indestructible drop or bindu, the uncontrived mind, ordinary consciousness, and I see I patched in something here wrong. What is the term, what is the modifier before mind in yours? The one right after that, the next one. Primordial mind. Primordial mind is good. And so forth. Okay, that's the innate mind of clear light. Oh, primordial mind is good. And so it's called by different names. It's very common. The great adepts, these are the Mahasiddhas of the Arya land, that's India. The splendid guardian Mahasuka, this Mahasuka is the name of one of the great siddhas. The splendid guardian Mahasuka or Saroruha Vajra, some of you will know of him. Lakeborn Vajra, the Lakeborn Vajra, Soge Dorje. Very, very central to the whole Dujom lineage. So, the great adepts of the Arya land, the splendid guardian Mahasuka, or Saroruha Vajra, that's Padmasambhava. The great adept, the great siddha, the Mahasiddhi Saraha, Nagarjuna, Lord Shavari, Telo as in Telopa, Naro as in Naropa, Maitri as in Maitripa. These are all great Mahasiddhas in the Dzogchen or Mahamudra lineages, and others, as well as the early Kagyü masters, including Marpa, Mila, Milarepa, Gampopa, Pakmodupa, who was a principal disciple of Gampopa, and others. So he just gave the constellation of the great adepts of India in this lineage. They all explain the ultimate Mahamudra as the clear light of great bliss, arising from having made the winds, the pranas, enter, abide, and dissolve in or into the central channel, the avaduti. Okay? Within Vajrayana context, that's it. When the vital energies have completely dissolved into the central channel, into the heart chakra, and into the indestructible bindu, such that the primordial mind of clear light manifests, that's Mahamudra. They're all in agreement on this. There's no controversy. That is the principal topic of the 7 attainment texts and the essential trilogy. So this is the primary textual source, and is the innermost essence of the unexcelled Yoga Tantras, vast as the ocean. Unexcelled Yoga Tantras, again, the Anuttara Yoga Tantras. Now, again, just quickly, this is a scholar's delight. If you read Tibetan or Sanskrit, then you know here's the ocean to plunge into if you like to get all the background information. The 7 attainment texts. The guardian Mahasukha, so one of, again, great adepts of India, composed the Secret Attainment. This is a commentary on the main meaning of the Guhya Samaja root tantra. Mahasukha expresses the greatness of the Guhya Samaja by such statements as, there is no tantra greater than the Sri Guhya Samaja. It is a jewel unique in all the worlds. He then explains the Guhya Samaja generation stage a little and teaches in particular the direct meaning of the root tantra, the powerful path of the inseparable bliss emptiness when one practices on the lofty completion stage. The Secret Attainment, this text, became like the grandmother of all the other attainment texts and the essential trilogy. Mahasukha's disciple, Ananga Vajra, composed attaining ascertainment of wisdom and means as in skillful means. And then Ananga Vajra's disciple, Indrabhuti, composed the attainment of gnosis. Indrabhuti's lady, or his consort, Lakshmi Inkara, composed the attainment of non-duality. Dombi Heroka, again very famous Mahasiddha from India, composed the attainment of the connate, and Dharikappa composed the attainment of the principle of the great secret, and Yogini Chinta, I have a woman author here, Yogini Chinta composed the attainment of the principle that follows the illumination of entities. So I don't expect you to memorize that. The essential trilogy, moving right on, the essential trilogy, so that was those attainment texts, the 7 of them, and now the essential trilogy. This is just showing, okay, here's background. If you'd like to really research this, you're fluent in Tibetan, there you go. And then get the oral transmissions and so forth, and you can spend 10, 15 years on that. That'll keep you busy. The essential trilogy, with respect to the 3 Doha, these Dohas are the songs of realization, especially attributed to Saraha. With respect to the 3 Dohas, collections of Saraha, some masters, such as the omniscient Bhutan, great Tibetan master, teach that the people Dohas, one of the 3, are purely Saraha's composition. He wrote them. While the other 2 are spurious. So he says only one of these are authentic, the other 2 are, written by somebody else. Also, some say that it cannot be accepted that there is no difference between the Doha's way of teaching and the guardian Nagarjuna Pada's way of teaching, the 5 stages of the completion path. So this goes hyper-technical. The 5 stages of the completion path, if you'd like to drench yourself in marvelous erudition in a superb translation, look at Gavin Kilty's translation of Tsongkhapa's great commentary on the 5 stages of Guhya Samaja completion. It's a masterpiece. Gavin did an outstanding job of translating, and I stand in awe. He's an excellent translator. That goes into all the detail you could ever imagine, but it's extremely complex and very high. You have to be a really quite extraordinary scholar to even understand it. You have to be a great adept to really get it. But he's talking about this. There are these lineages of Saraha and Nagarjuna, and their ways of explicating these 5 stages, which are way up on the path of enlightenment, just before become a Buddha. Are they completely the same, or are there some discrepancies between the 2? There's some debate about that. Enough for the time being. Some say that passages from the Dohas, such as, and here's a quote from the Dohas of Saraha, as Brahmans spin the sacred thread, the yogi puts his consciousness at ease. This very mind that's bound by worldly cares, when loosed, will be free, no doubt. So there's a phrase, a classic phrase, very quintessentially Mahamudra type of phrase. So there are some who say that, some say that passages such as the one I just read, and the fresh, uncontrived mind is best. That phrase, the fresh, uncontrived mind. The fresh, uncontrived mind is a mind that's not doing anything. It's not engaged in analysis, investigation, conceptualization. It's simply at rest in its own nature. Some say, there's a phrase from the Dohas, the fresh, uncontrived mind is best. And from Maitripa's 10 stanzas on reality, here's another pithy statement. Non-investigation is the mind of the Supreme Guru. So what these statements are suggesting is that Mahamudra really transcends all the activation of the mind, investigation, analysis, and so forth, that it's just beyond that. Okay? These are very classic statements, very typical statements that you do encounter in the Mahamudra tradition. So there are those who say that these statements are written for the purpose of explaining that if from the beginning you settle without analysis and block mentation, then you will be free. Some people say that. If you want to go from Mahamudra Dzogchen, good. Just don't do any investigation or analysis at all. Just sit in open presence. Choiceless awareness. Open monitoring. Bare attention. Etc. And that'll be enough. In other words, all that hassle of Vipashyana and the teachings of Madhyamaka and so forth, and the teachings on the Four Seals and the Satipatthana Sutra and so forth, all that, who needs that? Just settle down in Marmotsville and just hang out, and that will be free. Some people say that. This and similar mistakes regarding the 7 attainment texts and essential trilogy occur. But if they are true, and he said even if they are true, I'm going to put that in, even if they're true, then they are not in accordance with the omniscient Jay's statement, and this is Tsongkhapa. Even if they're true, then if they're true, they're just not compatible with Tsongkhapa's teaching at all. They're not in accordance with the omniscient Jay's statement, Tsongkhapa's statement in the Illuminating Lamp and elsewhere, that the sayings in the Dohas and so forth are to be practiced on the high mantra path. What he's doing is contextualizing this. Is there a point in Vajrayana, specifically in Vajrayana, on stage of completion, within stage of completion, on a high level of realization in the stage of completion, among those 5 stages, is there a point at which the supreme method is resting with no investigation and no analysis? The answer is yes. If you do it prematurely, you're a marmot. Do it then, and you're well on your way to enlightenment. You're almost finished. So this is Tsongkhapa's views, and I've seen this many places else as well. Let us explain the meaning and examples of the treasury of Dohas, just a little. Okay, so these are Sada's, his primary, gift of these Dohas. He's famous for them. Okay, and it's quintessential pith instruction in Mahamudra. Absolutely authoritative for the lineage. And he writes, Sadaha says, whoever enters emptiness bereft of compassion will not reach the supreme path. So there's that. So there's just no question about that. If you're just sitting there, no meditation, no investigation, no analysis, and there's no cultivation of emptiness, there's no compassion, I should say, no compassion, then you're just sitting there. You're not going to reach anything. And if you cultivate only compassion, again, this word gomba often is just uniformly translated as meditate, but it doesn't mean you're meditating on compassion. If you're meditating on compassion, the object of your attention is compassion. But that's not what you're doing. You're cultivating compassion, and the object of your attention is sentient beings. So the word gomba means meditate. You're meditating on emptiness, and you're cultivating compassion. But it's the same verb. And sometimes it has to do with your referent. You're meditating on impermanence, suffering, non-self, emptiness. But you're cultivating loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, patience, enthusiasm, and so on. So this should much be better. If you cultivate only compassion, if that's all you do, you'll remain here in samsara and not obtain liberation. That's a universal truth. Whoever is able to conjoin the two, to integrate the two, will not abide in samsara because you have realization of emptiness. And you'll not abide in nirvana because you're ongoing experience of compassion. Non-abiding nirvana. Or enlightenment, not abiding enlightenment. Thus, it is necessary to join the subject, the subjective awareness, compassion, which is connate great bliss. So, we have, nominally speaking, conventionally speaking, even in the highest states of realization, we still use words to refer to them. The awareness you're bringing to this experience is suffused with compassion, and it is connate great bliss, and what you're aware of is emptiness. The object of your awareness is emptiness. But of course, when you're resting in that, there's complete non-duality of your compassion, which is of the very nature of connate great bliss, and the emptiness of which you are non-conceptually and non-dually aware. But nominally speaking, we can still say, well, here's the object, here's the subject. Okay? This is all very fast, but you can always play it back at a slower speed. If you have realization, then all things are that. That is, we just summarize everything. If you really understand it, then that was it. No one knows anything other than that. When it comes to Mahamudra, that was complete. Reading is that. What's the point of reading? To get to this point. Apprehension, meditation are also that. It's all about this. Holding the treatises in one's heart is also that. Memorizing them, bearing them in mind, it's that. There is no view not indicated by that. It all comes down to that, what was just explained, but it depends on the words of the Guru alone. So to get it, to really get it, it's not going to be enough to read books, or get a PhD, or write a great thesis, or write 100 books. There's something about it that you need that living current of the words, the guidance, the blessing of the Guru. It turns out to be true. When the Guru's words are taken to heart, when the Guru's words are taken to heart, it's quite a literal translation. This is like seeing a treasure in the palm of your hand. The primordial nature goes unnoticed by the fool. The fool is deceived by confusion. So says Saraha. So the primordial nature is just exactly that indivisibility of connate, great bliss of connate gnosis and emptiness. And of course that goes unnoticed. It's one of those things where it's obscured. It's obscured by reification, by all the obscurations of the mind. So the fool doesn't see it. It's right there, doesn't see it. And why? Because the fool doesn't see it, because the fool is deceived by confusion. That's fundamentally here. The confusion of reification, grasping onto one's own inherent nature of everything else. And the parallel with a non-lucid dream is extremely close. Okay? This says, we'll read a little bit more. This says that when yogis directly experience and realize the primordial mind, then all phenomena are the emanations of that primordial nature. Well, they already are, but then you actually see that. So I would put in square brackets. Then all phenomena are seen in square brackets. I'm going to put that in right now. Are seen as. This says that when yogis directly experience and realize the primordial mind, then all phenomena are seen as emanations of that primordial nature. No person knows anything that is not an expression of that primordial nature. That's classic Dzogchen teachings as well. That direct realization of the primordial mind is also a direct realization of the essence of reading, the whole point, the essence of reading, apprehension, and meditation, and it is also the main purpose of bearing the treatises in mind. You've studied them and all that, good. Have you bear them in mind? Are they becoming integrated into your mind stream? It's the whole point. There is no other view superior to the view indicated by that essence. This is the Mahamudra, this is the Dzogchen, the great perfection. However, the direct experience of that essence is by the power of meditation that depends on instruction from the mouth of the Holy Guru, who is part of an uninterrupted lineage of holy beings beginning from Vajrayana, primordial Buddha. When the words of the Guru, who has such instructions and experience, enters one's heart, if one settles upon and meditates in single-pointed equipoise on the essence, emptiness, then one will directly see the meaning of emptiness as if it were a treasure in the palm of one's hand. Not directly seeing the primordial nature, fools, ordinary individuals, are deceived by the confusion of clinging to true existence. That's reification. They're deceived by the confusion of clinging to true existence. So says the archer, Saraha. And we will pause there. Hola, so very dense, but it's good. At times I've received many, many teachings from my various lamas. I remember quite a number of lamas, where they will go through material. Dzogchen Rinpoche, great Gelug Lama, and adept, he's a Siddha. He came to Tapo Chuling, our monastery in Switzerland once. I translated for him. And in about a week, he taught us all of the 6 yogas in Naropa. And it was just like on a super compact, micro dot. He just poured it in. And of course, he was an incredible scholar. I translated for him on a number of occasions. Enormous erudition, but also a profound realization. He made it quite evident. And in 1 week, I think it was, Geshe Rabten asked him, please teach the students there. There weren't many of us, maybe 20, 30 of us. Teach us all the yogas of six yogas in Europa. There aren't no more profound teachings in the whole Kagyü tradition. And this was the Gelugpa lineage of that, taught by Tsongkhapa himself. So he taught it. And I was translating for him. I was a pretty good translator back then. I'm all rusty now, like an old knife that's been lying in salt water. But when it was all finished, I went to Geshe Rabten and I said, that was incredible. Shall I devote myself to those practices? And he said, no, you're no way ready for that. And of course, he was completely right. Then one might say, well, then what did you bring him here for? That was 6-7 days of pretty intense work. And I didn't ask him that. I was always polite with him. Like, what's up with that? I don't do that to my Dom. But the point was perfectly clear. A teacher, a lama of the caliber of Dzogchen Rinpoche is very rare. It was rare then, it's rare now. They're really, shall I say it again? They're really rare. That level of erudition, that level of direct realization, he just glistened with it. It was kind of obvious with him. And if you have an opportunity to receive teachings from such a being, you may as well not ask for a little baby stuff down where you live. Because this is like a shooting star. He just comes through and he's gone. He passed away. I've heard his incarnation is quite wonderful. I've not met him, but I've heard he's quite extraordinary. I'm delighted to hear that. But in any case, Geshe Rabten said, no, this is for the future. I've asked him here, give these teachings, the seeds are planted. Let germinate all in good time. In the meantime, get back to work. In the practices that are for you right now, that really address your issues right now, but this is the long-term investment. This is the seed stored for the future. And so that's what we're doing here. This is not going to be terribly practical, all the 7 texts and the blah, 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 like that. But this is a transmission. I'm passing it on. A little commentary, not a whole lot, but I think sufficient for the time being. This is, deep storage. This will be there. We're going to get back to the practice pretty quickly. But this is your long-term investment, right? And it's stored there in your substrate consciousness. So sooner or later, those seeds will germinate. Okie dokie. Incredibly beautiful day. Let's enjoy it. Podcast people, wherever you are, enjoy your day. And I'll see you tomorrow.